Malawi is a country that is close to my heart, and so it's a privilege to be here to speak. Thank you very much for asking me. It's also quite a challenge, and when I saw Stuart's brief, I realised he was asking me to summarise my entire career in 7 minutes. When I tell you that that career started at the age of 23, 49 years ago, you'll come to realise that I'm a man of a certain age. These days, when web pages demand my age, I find myself going to the far right-hand corner, the one that some fundraisers refer to as the twilight zone, or alternatively, the legacy zone. But the length of my career means that also in talks like this, I'm often saying many, many years ago. And these constant references to mortality are quite debilitating. However, having said that, I am a man of a certain age. Almost anything can happen, so I better get on. When I talk about fundraising, I split this into two parts. I talk about the science of fundraising, and I talk about the art of fundraising. The science, I would suggest, has changed quite a lot in the last 49 years. So many more opportunities for research and for training. So there shouldn't really be rubbish applications coming to donors. So how do you find a mechanism through which you can express yourself and make it and make it more possible to stand out from the others? I would suggest that's about the art of fundraising, and specifically about the art of storytelling. Many years ago, I went to a talk by a man called Ken Burnett. He was the doyen of fundraising. And there's something he said in that talk which really stuck to my mind. He said, people give to people. And when I thought about it, yeah, that's obvious. That's what fundraising is about. It's about creating trust so that people feel that they can fund you. My adaptation of that, when I'm teaching fundraising, is that successful fundraising is about telling convincing stories to people that you know really need to hear them. So what makes a good story? And first of all, it has to be true. Having said that, your truth and the donor's truth may not necessarily be so closely aligned. And you can get around that by discussion and narrative. But you shouldn't actually come too far away from what makes you special, because that's your authenticity. So don't chase the money. It's important not to chase the money. Keep authentic to your story. There are other ways to increase your capacity to convince. Adding metrics to your story these days is almost crucial, because donors need to measure the progress you're making and feel comfortable. If you offer them the metrics, then they think you're taking your work really seriously. I also talk about 3 levels of proof. And I'm not going to talk about them now, but there's a hook. If anybody wants to ask a question later on, ask me about 3 levels of proof. But crucial is your capacity to take the journey, to take the donor on your journey and explain to them where your beneficiaries are, where you want your beneficiaries to be, and then to explain the process as to how you're going to get there. And bring them in and sell this to them and show them where their funds are going to be spent and how they're going to make a difference. What worries me, though, is the degree to which applicants and fundraisers sometimes just forget to think about the donor in this process. What are their targets? What do they need to achieve? What are their ambitions? And how can your application help them to achieve it? When I mentor new fundraisers, I sometimes say to them, okay, bring me 5 targets. And when they come back with those 5 targets, I'll say, right, fine. Okay, now what I want you to do is to put 4 of those targets in the filing cabinet, because scattergun approaches never work. And I want you to take that one target, and I want you to go back to them. And rather than you coming to me this time and saying, this is why I want to approach them, I want you to tell me, why is it that they need to fund you? What is it that they're trying to achieve? What is it in their targets they have to achieve that make you essential in order to be able to get that done? Now, if they come back and they say, do you know, guess what? They want to go to Malawi on the holidays. Or, they've got 3 kids and actually they're quite happy with the job. What that means is you've had a personal conversation with them, you've shared your vulnerability with them, and people sharing vulnerability is what creates trust. So getting people to actually have those conversations and talk with them is pretty essential. Now, mostly, the people I'm talking to get it. Every now and then, though, they don't. And you might find this very hard to believe listening to me, but every now and then I have to resort to brutality and crudity. So what I would say to them in these circumstances is, okay, I understand you're not getting it, but let's look at it in a slightly different way. Let's look at it from the perspective of your private life. Let's assume, for instance, that you've gone onto all those dating sites and you've found somebody that you really want to have a relationship with. Do you, on your first date, because by the way, that's what your first application is, do you on your first date really put your glass of wine down, push the menu to one side, look them in the eyes and say, you know, I've researched you, I've really researched you, and now I'm looking at you and I'm thinking to myself, I don't know whether this works for you, but I'm going to have a really fantastic time. Shall we just skip the rest and go straight back to my place and have some coffee? Did that work for you? Because I can tell you, it didn't work for me. But my excuse is that I was 18, hormonal and stupid. What's yours? Now, even thinking about that at my age is exhausting, so I need to finish and move on. And I will finish with a fundraising checklist that I leave people with. Understand yourself, your cause and your offer. The impact of your offer is often much wider than you actually think. And again, if you want a question on that, I'm more than happy to take it. Use plain language. Avoid jargon. Use fewer words than more and avoid qualifying words. Agree a simple and engaging dialogue and communication, and everyone in your organisation keep to it. Put your beneficiaries at the centre of your appeal. It's not about funds that you need, it's about the difference that you can make for them. Begin by establishing a very clear baseline and take your donor on the journey that gets them to the end that you want to achieve. Show them the importance of their contribution. Never overclaim. Don't force a donor fit where there is none. Never make a claim without evidence and levels of proof to back it. Really understand your donor's needs and apply your offer to them. Be engaging. Be inclusive. Fundraising is not an event, it's a process. It begins when you define the need, but it does not end when you get the funds. Celebrate your successes with your donors, but also engage them as problem solvers if you need to. They have skin in the game. A successful fundraising process is a repeatable one. Now, I have to admit with legacies, there is a small technical issue in connection with that. But we are in the city of the resurrection men, so put some thought into it, you never know what might happen. The donor world is a small one. If an established donor can't fund something, they may well know someone who will. And finally, you'll be pleased to hear, finally, enthusiasm and hope are far more engaging than desperation. Thank you very much.